A week of swimming in the books at the Aussie trials. We've got new fastest swimmers in the world, Aussie records, Commonwealth records, and maybe a little bit of disappointment and a few DQs to go through. This week we'll discuss all. We'll hear your thoughts about whether you thought this was a slow Aussie trials, a faster one than the Brits, and plenty of discussion points beyond that. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Propulsion Swimming Podcast. Yes, like I said, this week we are going through the Australian swimming trials. We've done the Brits, we've done the Americans, we've talked a bonus episode about Summer McIntosh and a little bit of Canadian trials. This week it's time to take you guys through the Australian swimming trials as we head towards the Singapore World Championships this summer.
I think you got it kind of right in the intro, saying there were some outstanding swims and then some kind of underwhelming swims. We'll go through it all. I think it did miss some superstar swims like your Titmus, for example, and then retired swimmers like Kate Campbell and Emma McKeown. It did miss a little bit of that. But like you said, some youngsters to talk about, and we should be keeping an eye on them in the future.
Yeah, 16-year-olds winning breaststroke. I mean, we've seen that before somewhere, haven't we? Now, before we get into this week's episode, I want to remind you guys that the Propulsion Swimming Podcast is brought in partnership with Soma Bay in Egypt, the newest destination for your warm weather training camps. And you can book your training camp now by following the link in the description of this podcast, which takes you to renowned sports booking agent Sports Abroad. But Dan, I think it's best that we just jump straight in, and I want to flow through this week's podcast with kind of notes from the public, actually, because the day we are recording this podcast on a Monday night, we put out this morning a chance for everyone to get involved, a chance to kind of build a bit more of a community around this podcast and for people's thoughts and opinions to be heard. So we're going to race through those as the structure for this podcast because there's a lot of good talking points, and I want to start things off on the positive. I know we said there's some slow times to go through, but let's start things off on the positive and talk Lani Pallister. Get straight into the swimmers, and for me, she was the swimmer of the week.
For sure. I think she actually got stronger as the week went on, if I remember right. Like the 400 she started there, become the 7th swimmer to break 4 minutes, which is no mean feat. An amazing sort of splits as well. 157 coming back in a 202 is something to be pretty happy with. She then led that on into the 200 free, got a PB in that. And then I think she's better suited to distance events, so the 800 and the 1500. She ended really well with the 1500, where she got the Australian record and the Commonwealth record to go to third fastest ever. Does she now pose a bit of a threat to, I was going to say to Kaylee McKeown and Summer McIntosh, but I think they're just a little bit leagues ahead. But you never know. I mean, she dropped 4 seconds in that 800. If she can do it again, big ask, I know, she's in with a shout, surely.
She's another one of these Dean Boxall swimmers, and it's kind of, you need to remember that she's only 23 years old. It kind of feels like she's been a name who's been around for a little while now, but that's because, I mean, she's been part of this dominant Aussie, I call it freestyle revolution, to be honest with you. On the women's side, they've owned it consistently for a very, very long time. What they haven't owned is the 8 and the 15, and she has been beyond Titmus, the shining light.
She's now faster than Titmus in the 800.
That's what I was gonna say. She's now overtaken Titmus in the 800, which is no mean feat at all.
Yes, yeah. Third fastest this year in the 800 as well, obviously behind Ledecky and Summer McIntosh. So she's in amongst with the very, very best. I'm looking forward to seeing what she does in Singapore, because confidence-wise, must be through the roof right now. And I think I'm remembering watching some of the highlights, and the comms were saying Dean Boxall has got this strategy where they're just, all of his swimmers, or most of the swimmers, are attacking the race from the get-go. Depending, it doesn't matter on the distance, just get out to the front and try and hold your own. And I tell you what, it's worked out really well for Lani there, because she has absolutely, well, she's dominated for one, and she's blown the doors off, I think.
Yeah, I wonder if the Dean, it's kind of the leaving no stone unturned strategy of going into the race and you put all your chips on the table. Going back to British trials, we spoke to Ollie Morgan, and that's how he wanted to swim the 2 back at British trials. He just didn't want to come out of it wondering what his time was going to be. And I do wonder in the summer if she will be swimming at 800 against Summer and Katie Ledecky, if she can put a tiny bit of pressure on them by taking it out even harder, even faster. I would say it's probably not going to phase the two of them, given that their PB is a point, how many seconds faster? 5?
5 or so, yeah, something like that.
5 or so seconds faster. But at the same time, if you're the best of the rest behind those two, that's no mean feat given the times that they're swimming right now.
No, exactly. I think it's an amazing sort of turning point for Lani Pallister. She was always there, but she was almost in Titmus's shadow when it comes to distance sort of events. She really grasped it with both hands to stamp her name, stamp her authority almost, because every race that she did from 200 upwards, she absolutely nailed it. And she actually gave Mollie O'Callaghan a run for her money in the 200 as well. So yeah, she did really well, and rightfully, I think, and so do you, the swimmer of the week.
Yeah, I think there's maybe one other swimmer who we could hand it to, and it's not a question for the public that came in, but Sam Short in the 400 metres freestyle. He had a really tough Paris Olympic Games in the fact that he was ill heading in. His preparations weren't ideal, and obviously the swims weren't where he wanted to be. We spoke to him on this podcast probably about 12 months ago at this point, and for him to be back going a 3:41 low 400 metres freestyle is incredibly good, and he backed it up in the 8 and the 15 as well, but I do think the 4 is his target. I think that is we always say the 200 metres freestyle is the blue ribbon event. I think in Australian swimming the 400 freestyle is a blue ribbon event, thanks to Thorpe, thanks to the history, even and Elijah Winnington, well, the history that they've got over the 400 metres freestyle. And a 3:41.0 is putting pressure on Lucas Martins. Like, Lucas Martins may have broken the world record this year, but he's not going to be alone. And the splits aren't far away from what Martins did.
No, again, it was a very... he attacked the race, very much like Lani Pallister. Like, to split a 1:48, which, you know, Lucas Martins, to do that world record, split at 1:47, so he's not a million miles
far
away.
Off, yeah.
And he's come back in a 1:52, and you think, oh, he's really... That seems to be the tactic nowadays, especially for this 400. Maybe these swimmers are suddenly realising, coaches as well, that the 400 is, yes, it's a distance event, middle distance, let's call it, but it's becoming a bit more of a, not a sprint, but a really, like a strong effort from the get-go to try and find that rhythm, and then try and hold on for dear life, effectively. But that's where the training comes in, and the Aussies do front crawl or freestyle really, really well, obviously. Like, we'd be talking about Winnington's swim, I think, like a 3:43.9. That's actually really good.
But then didn't we actually say off the back of the American trials, like last week's episode, we said anything around the 3:43 for Sam Short and Elijah Winnington, we'd be quite happy with this time of year.
And the fact that Elijah's done that, you think, oh, that's amazing. The problem is that you've got Lucas Martins going a world record and Sam Short's just gone 2 seconds quicker than that. You think, oh, is it actually that good? But it is. Like a 3:43 is actually an insanely good time. It's just that the event, a bit like what we talked about with Summer in the bonus pod the other day, the event seems to have moved on, and Sam is the leading light, I suppose, for Australian swimming in this event.
Yeah, he is, definitely. And I'm really looking forward to his battle with Lucas Martins, because, I mean, we've chatted to him about his racing style. He's an aggressive racer. He doesn't, again, attacking the race from the start is something he will do.
It's almost like a battle of attrition.
Yeah.
Like, who is going to fade first? As of right now, it's Sam Short to fade away, but when it comes to actually racing head-to-head, then... You know, Sam Short's a racer, then going to be a good one. It should be a good race.
Now, another comment we had from the public before this episode was King Kyle is back, and, well, he's never gone away, to be perfectly honest with you. But I think coming into the Paris Olympics, he said this is likely to be his last Olympic Games. Coming out the back, we've obviously had the announcement that all the 50s are still going, and he's kind of announced that he's going until Brisbane 2032, which is a hell of a commitment for someone who said Paris was his last one. But he backs it up. 53 actually was really, really impressive to go at 21.6. And then, PB. And then the 100 free, 47.2 puts him right in amongst it. Obviously, Jack Alexi's gone faster this year, but 40 odd days now heading into Singapore World Championships. I mean, he's in a very good place. That's kind of where he usually is heading into World Championships, if not faster. Yeah,
I'd say that's faster because I think he's never gone sub 47 if I remember correctly. So he's in and around his lifetime best. So he is on fire, I would say, right now. And it's very interesting that he's going to Brisbane 32. I think that's probably a big talking point because he's been around forever, right? But he's only 26. Like, wow.
Well, he was racing when he was like 16, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think he won gold at 18, didn't he,
Yeah.
in Rio, if I remember right. So, he's been around forever, but he's only 26. And you think, well, maybe 2032 is actually quite realistic. He's going to do it anyway. But if he's still PBing in the 50, 21 mid, basically, is actually really good going. It's not going to win you a medal because you're dealing with Cam McEvoy, of course, and Ben Proud, another actual specialised 50-metre swimmers. But if he were to get past LA, then maybe he will turn himself into a specialist 50-metre swimmer. And then you're dealing with someone who could be a real problem when Brisbane comes round, and home soil and all that stuff as well. So, very exciting for him. And child on the way, so that's he's going to be tired from doing that. From
I was going to say it changes things.
Yeah, so we'll see how he gets on with that. But he even nailed the 50 fly as well, all comers record for that as well. So he's firing. I think the public comments that we saw there, I think it was multiple people that were saying that, actually, to be fair, they're not wrong. He is one to watch out for. He is still, in my eyes, one of the best 100-metre freestylers in the world, and he is always going to be a threat in that event.
I wonder if it is that 50 fly that's keeping him around at Brisbane.
I suppose it's two options, isn't it? I suppose when it comes to LA, because he could do the 53 and the 50 fly, and you've got two chances at podium, and he could very much do it. Again, is the 22.8 going to get you a podium? He's going to have to go a little bit quicker than that, but then maybe he specialises and it changes the game. So
he's got what?
Who knows?
7 years till Brisbane.
Well, exactly. You've got a while. Have you got a while?
Okay, so you've just talked Kyle Chalmers there, so I think. While we talk 50, because Kyle was obviously really impressive, he didn't win the 50, Cam McEvoy did. So let's take a quick ad read break now. And when we come back, we'll talk Cam McEvoy and actually how he's moving himself on in the 50 metres freestyle, because it's really, really interesting to deep dive into some of his splits. Okay, this week's episode of the Propulsion Swimming Podcast is brought to you in partnership with One Flow Aquatics in Summer Bay, the newest destination for your warm weather training camps. The British Manchester Performance Squad have been out there now for 2 weeks. They've enjoyed the sun, they've enjoyed the sea, they've enjoyed the swimming, hopefully Ryan Livingston hasn't killed them too much. There was the Paris squad. There were a few others from the Loughborough Performance Centre who got the chance to go out there as well. And when they come back to the UK, we cannot wait to hear their thoughts on Summer Bay, because every time me and Dan go out there, we love it. And we're going to be out there very, very soon capturing, hopefully, if you're listening to this, some of your club training camps, because you can book now using the link in the show notes of this podcast. And we want to get out there. We want to capture what is actually happening in club training, club swimming. And Dan wants to introduce you to the buffet every time you go there.
Yeah, could you imagine? That'd be amazing. Imagine having a buffet every day. That's what these summers are like. Having a buffet every day. Training, they're training hard in the morning. There's gyms located everywhere. So they're working really hard. But I'll tell you what, they are having a feast every day, because it is amazing. That is a big selling point. But obviously, it's the facilities. The hotels are incredible. And we can't recommend it enough. I just wish I was a swimmer again. I don't have the body for it now, but I really wish I was a swimmer, because I would happily go there. Well, I'd go there every week and I'd live there. But if you had the opportunity to go there for a training camp, please do, because you won't be disappointed.
Yeah, so if you follow the link in the show notes of this podcast, you can check out the facilities that One Flow Aquatics in Summer Bay has to offer. There is a new Cactus Hotel, which has literally just been built, which has fabulous... It even has different opportunities for clubs who want to go there, and you can have a single room to yourself, you can have a double room, you can have a triple, you can even have 4 swimmers in one room to cut down on your costs for a training camp. That new hotel itself has its own pool at the hotel, which is more of a leisure pool, not a training pool. It's got, I believe, gym facilities, it's got a chef, it's got a restaurant, everything you need. And then there's a shuttle bus service that will take you to the pool, or you could walk to the pool, to be perfectly honest.
I mean, it really is just like 2 minutes, isn't it?
It's not very far. And that shuttle bus service will also take you to the marina, which has lots of amazing good food, really good atmosphere in the evenings. It's actually quite nice and calm and peaceful.
It's chilled. It is,
which is a really nice place to unwind and relax. Or you could play paintball, or you could go go-karting down in the marina. There's all sorts going on. Or you could get the minibus service to one of the private beaches that are on offer if you stay in these hotels. So, like I said, I've rambled on enough. I've done the sales pitch. Go check it out. Go book now. And hopefully we will see you guys for your training camps, either in, like, I know training camps for UK swimmers is October half term, or maybe even, February half term in 2026?
Yeah, maybe. The other side of Christmas, probably, yeah.
Yeah, have a look if you want to book those training camps, and we'll try and see you guys out there and have a chat. Like, Kyle Chalmers obviously didn't win the 50 meters freestyle. I want to touch on Cam McEvoy, who goes into Singapore as the fastest 50 meters freestyler this year with a 21.3. I think the biggest talking point is his first 15 meters, which is now, he went a 5.01, I think, 5.0 something to 15 meters. And the gold standard, or the best, not even the gold standard, the very, very best is Caleb Dressel, who has always gone sub 5 seconds. But Ben Proud is around that 5 second mark. And the Achilles heel is Cam McEvoy's 50 meters free, which is stupid to say given how fast he's been going for how long now, and he's the Olympic champion. But his Achilles heel has been his slow start. So it looks like that has been the work on off the back of Paris. And I think he even put a post out saying now it's about putting the jigsaw together. So clearly that was his work on heading into these Aussie trials. I would say he done that.
Worked.
Worked.
Sure. Yeah.
And then if he can just, like his closing speed was always the fastest in the field, or maintaining his speed. So now if he brings that back together, pulls that all together, could we see a sub 21? Well, maybe. If his start is that good now, and he then backs up what he was doing, well, I mean, his Paris time was pretty special, but what he did in the Worlds in Doha, who knows?
His start is interesting, actually, because there's a really good shot in the highlights of the Aussie trials. I can't remember what day it was. I think it was day 3 of the underwater shot, and I think he literally just does 3 or 4 dolphin kicks and he's into his stroke and into his rhythm and tempo, etc. And I think he did it. I think he was up after 10 meters, and of course most of these 50 sprinters, they're up after 15, aren't they? Your Ben Prowse, Caleb Dressels, Jordan Crooks, and he's almost different. I remember there was I think he was a Finnish swimmer who very much just dived in straight up, going into a stroke. It's not quite like that, but he's not going the full 15 because he knows his strength, as does his coach, I'm sure. His strength is the swim speed. So you've got to get up and into your stroke as quickly as possible. And yeah, everything else after that is pretty good. I think maybe at the slightest of tie-ups, maybe towards the end. But again, he's going to be fine-tuning that in the next couple of weeks, I'm sure. So are we going to see... I expect to see a lower 21, a sub 21. That would be special. But again, I'd love to see it. Let's just stay optimistic. He's going to do it. That would win. Obviously, that would win Worlds for sure.
You say he was tying up at Aussie Trial. I just think that was because he was next to Chalmers. I think that's all that was.
Even on a 50, he comes back at you,
the back end
Chalmers.
speed.
Yeah, it's mental, isn't it?
I kind of another point we had brought in was there was a big amount of DQs at Aussie Trials. Big amount in terms of times, it was big names as well that got DQ'd for, and all of them, in fact, were for twitches on the blocks. So I don't know if there was something going on in venue, like a lot of movement going on, a lot of background sound, because it doesn't feel right that officials were trigger happy DQing people, because I don't think that's the attitude. I know one of them got overturned, which was Kaylee McKeown in the 50 back heats, and that was because of movement behind the block. So whether there was something like that going on, because it was Kaylee McKeown got DQ'd, Cam McEvoy, Joshua Young got DQ'd in the 2 breaststroke, which you think, do you need a fast start in a 2 breaststroke? Well, no, not really. Just something was happening.
I don't know. I can't remember if it was all on the same block or anything like that. Maybe there was a bit of interference with the speaker. I don't know. But the stands weren't very busy. This is leading into another negative, I suppose, with these DQs. But when it's quieter in a stand, you can actually pick up on more sounds in a way where it doesn't sort of blend in. But everyone's going to be quiet for the start anyway, so maybe that's not an excuse or a reason. Strange one, because they were all different events as well. So... like sprint for Cam McEvoy, obviously 200, and then the 50 for in the water for backstroke. I know she doesn't want to talk about it, and what's happened has happened, but I think Kaylee is probably a little bit lucky not to have been disqualified in that 50, but she had the right to...
She appealed, and if she's
got the right to do it, then...
That's what I mean. Like, so her appeal got upheld. And obviously all we've seen, because we're not in Australia, we're not at... It's Brisbane, I think it was held. We're not in the venue. All we see is this clip on social media of it's a twitch.
A twitch.
Without doubt, it's a twitch that should have been DQ'd in its in isolation is what we've seen it as. But obviously, if it's been DQ'd, which makes me think there was something else going on in venue with a multiple of these DQs, but then maybe these other ones would have been turned around. Who knows? Shall we talk about Kaylee swims in the pool then? So,
well, they were
you
good,
say she can bring back. I mean, her 50 back Brit fans start getting a tiny bit excited. Slower than Lauren Cox.
Yeah,
27.33. Her 100 back 57.71, which is very good. I'm not sure if that's faster than Reagan went at American. It's around about the same mark.
They're about the
isn't
same-ish, give or take, yeah.
But then her 200 backstroke, a 204.47. Yeah, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, phenomenal, but not for her, weirdly. It's like a good second or so off her best. But again, she's won that particular race, by like over 5 seconds. But even if she was against the rest of the world, with the exception of Reagan and I think someone like Claire Kazan, like she is going to be winning by about that sort of margin. That's how good she is, and those other 2 American girls are as well. But it's her pacing in the 200 backstroke. I think that's her strength for sure. Because after the first 50, obviously, because it's very different when you're more fresh. But the 3 final 50s, they're solid 31 mid to highs. No one can keep up with that. You can't do it. Reagan gives her a really good run for her money, but just the final 50, if you're holding that same time as you did on the second 50, it's very difficult to compete with that, which is why Chalmers is remembered for his backhand speed, as is Mollie O'Callaghan, which we'll get to. But yeah, she's the fastest in the world for that event and still is the best at it, for sure.
Best backstroker in the world, still?
I think so.
Even though I would hazard a guess that she's kind of drop-tapered into this, trained through a little bit.
I would imagine so, yeah.
She can, although Mollie O'Callaghan gave her a very, very good run in the backstroke events. She has always been a strong backstroker, but she's closer than ever in the 50. The 100, she's still a second and a bit off.
Yeah, I mean, Kaylee's not going to be practicing, I'm imagining, for the 50. The 100 and 200 is going to be her main aim, as well as the IMs, although she didn't actually race the IMs at this meet, so maybe she's just targeting the backstroke events, which is interesting. Yeah, there was a little bit, that is true, yeah. But she's always been a backstroker first anyway, so she's always going to target that. But an amazing swimmer, immense turns, amazing pacing, and a real handful on the backstroke events. Is she going to be challenged by Reagan, or if not beaten by Reagan? What is your opinion? Early door predictions.
In which distance?
Ah, well, both. Let's go 100 first, 200 second.
No one know.
It's still almost a coin flip, isn't it? It really is. I would still favour Kaylee, but it's very close. It's sort of like 55-45 in favour of Kaylee, I would say. The 50 backstroke is different. I think Catherine Burkhoff is the one to beat on that event, and Lauren Cox, of course, because we've got to be optimistic for our Brits, so we've got to beat her too.
Okay, final swimmer of note before we talk big swing of opinion. Mollie O'Callaghan, obviously she had a really powerful interview at the end of the meet. I think it was that she had quite a tough build-up leading into these games. So for her to come away with a 200 meters freestyle, let's just say Aussie title, for her to go a 1:54.4 and then the 100 free at 52.8, which is the 4th fastest in the world this year. We don't obviously know what those personal circumstances are. No one needs to know what they are. But she's heading into Singapore still as the fastest Aussie, which says a lot. I think maybe we said it in the middle of the US trials review that we did last week that the Americans are probably going to be heading in favourite now for that 100 meters freestyle. And I mean, if you just kind of give Mollie O'Callaghan a mulligan and say she might be faster when she goes into Singapore, or this could just be a building year heading at the start of an Olympic cycle, the rest of the depth in Australian swimming isn't where it usually is in the 100 meters freestyle. No,
I mean, I think Emma McKeown was a big cog in that relay for the 4x1. You have younger swimmers like Olivia Wunsch coming through, but again, her time of 53.3 is good, don't get me wrong, but when you're comparing to the Americans who are all going 52 points, it's a second over a 4x1 is a lot. It's going to be a tough old ask to do that. Alex Perkins also is in the 53 sort of bracket. Meg Harris actually pulled out of that final, so I'm not quite sure why that happened. Not sure. Who knows? And then Shayna Jack was a little bit of a underwhelming, I'm afraid to say. Like the 53 didn't work out for her either, and I believe she misses the team which is, I think, a real big shock. So
she was one of the swimmers of Paris for that.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Unsung hero in terms of the level of time, like her times that she was doing in Paris. She was going 52 lows.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
Relays, and she was right up there in the 50 meters freestyle as well. But maybe it's like we've had it over here in the UK. These big Olympic names who've had a lot of pressure on their shoulders, and that Aussie 4x1 has had pressure on its shoulders for years.
It has, yeah.
Taking an extended break off the back of the Olympic Games, they might just be back in the water the turn of the year, which just isn't long enough time to get into, well,
enough blocks of hard work.
That's what I mean. Yeah. The incredible level of performance that they usually come out with. But longer term aim, Singapore, sure, it's going to be great. It's going to be a spectacle. We're expecting lots of world records. But for a lot of swimmers, we can have this mindset of we need to be a once every year sport. But for a lot of swimmers, it is still once every 4.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the Olympics is still the pinnacle by such a long way compared to Worlds, which is second on the ranking, if you like. They will be targeting LA more so than anything else, and with it being the first year of a cycle, they will be having more rest. They will be experimenting on different things in training to see what works. And I think most of the time, they'll be having such an extended rest. Like, let's say Tom Dean, for example, was out of the pool for a good number of months after Paris. So it does take a while to get back into the swing of things, and I'm sure that'll be the same for these Australians as well. But I think Mollie O'Callaghan, even though she's had the personal stuff aside, those swims that she actually did do, probably the backstroke is most impressive, if I'm honest.
The 50,
the 200 free, like a 154, is 2 seconds off her best, but still the fastest time this year. So she's still the one to beat in that event, even though she's still got, with no Titmus racing as well, she really is the one to beat.
And Summer didn't swim at Canadian trials either.
No, exactly. Be interesting. I mean, Lani Pallister will give her a run for her money if she enters it.
I'm just kind of thinking British-wise. Freya Colbert. I mean, she always manages to pick an event in a certain year to swim it and swim it well. Maybe her and Dave Hemmings have cooked something up again, where suddenly the field in the 2-3 isn't as deep as it usually is. And
there's no Ledecky, is there? And no,
you've got Weinstein,
Titmus, and there is Weinstein. That is true. Mollie O'Callaghan have to deal with. So there are names, obviously, still to contend with.
There's a chance to potentially final.
Oh yeah, I think she will.
I think Jorge is a good shot there.
I think she will final. But there are some very strong swimmers in that 200 free. Even when you throw out, let's say McIntosh doesn't race it at Worlds, you throw her out and take Titmus out as well. I mean, it's still a big arse podium, even with those names out. But watch this space. I think Mollie O is still the one to watch out for in that event.
Okay, let's end this podcast then with the bipolar opinions that we got heading into this podcast. So we've gone through like certain snippets of what people sent in, their swimmers that they wanted us to talk about, the races that needed talking about, the DQs. But weirdly enough, some people say are slow Australian trials, and other people commented to us are more impressive trials than us Brits. So I kind of want to knuckle down with you, Dan, of why that's the case. And I think it's the top end of Australian swimming. So the names that we've just gone through, your Lani Pallister, Sam Short, Kyle Chalmers, Cam McEvoy, Kaylee McKeown, and Mollie O'Callaghan, they're head and shoulders above most of British swimming. I say most because there's some names which, in their own rights and their own events, they are still number one in the world right now. Ollie Morgan, 100 backstroke, and Harrod Evans, 100 breaststroke. Being to me, those were the two standout swims from British champs.
Yeah.
And there's just not a big number of them compared to the Australians. But at the same time, when people say the Australian trials were slow, I kind of get that as well, because the depth behind this top 6 or 7 that we've just named probably isn't where it was leading into the Paris Olympics. Like, the 200 meters breaststroke was won by Zach Stubblety-Cook in a 2:09, which Zach's better than that. He's capable of a lot faster than that. The 100 meters backstroke, there will not be an Aussie swimming men's 100 meters backstroke in Singapore because it was won in a 54.
Yeah.
There's little bits like that which, if you are concentrating into the depths of the times, you're just going, oh man, it's not special.
I think it's very similar. It's just that your top 6, your top 6 Aussies are good in no certain events, obviously, but our top 6 swimmers in Britain, let's say, your Duncan, your Angharad, your Ollie, your Matt, for example, it's very, very similar. And every nation will have a weaker event. As of right now, that men's 100 backstroke, that's not good. Like a 54 point, to have no individual men's 100 backstroke for Australia is a massive turn up for the books. But obviously someone's going to have to go for the medley relay. So that's a massive miss. But there are names coming through, the younger ones that we kind of alluded to, the 16-year-olds, who could take those spots later on down the line, even though they are going to Singapore. It's a bit of an experience-building meet for them, I imagine.
There is a changing of the guard because you've got the likes of Ella Ramsey coming through with no Kaylee swimming the 200 metres IM. You've got Nash Wilkes, who's now training with Mel Marshall. Actually, he was training over in the UK with Adam and Mel Marshall before, but he's coming through in the 100 metres breaststroke going a minute 0.1.
Yep.
I mean, that 100 breaststroke by itself was really weird with Joshua Young, who had a really good short course season, not quite firing. Zach Stubberty-Cook, again, not quite firing. And then, like you said, there was a 16-year-old, Sienna Toohey, I think she qualified in the 50 and 100 breaststroke. Am I right in thinking she won both of those?
She won both. I can't remember the consideration time. Definitely the 100. I'm not so sure about the 50, but probably. Yeah, she might even, if she's going anyway, she might race it.
I think when people say it's slow, it's just a changing of the guard because the events that were won in the slow times are the younger swimmers. Does that make sense? But I can see it both ways. I can see why some people think it's better when you've got Kaylee McKeown swimming a 204, 200 backstroke.
Yeah, again, you compare that to our events, 200 backstroke over here, and it's a difference of 4 or 5 seconds. But then on the other hand, you look at the men's 200 IM and it was won in 1:58 and Duncan's going 1:55. It's kind of the same, but it's just in different events. So I think the Brits did really well, especially, mind you, that we did it early, obviously, in April. These guys, they've done more work, I suppose. I think
they're closer to they're closer to Worlds, aren't they? So
I think it's much of muchness, if I'm honest. Just stronger events for stronger other nations, but I think it's a turning of the guard because these youngsters are coming through and they're actually winning or podium and with some pretty good times. Like Harrison Turner 1:54.9 for a 200 fly is actually, I think that's pretty good. Something to build up on there. So, but yeah, the 16-year-old Sienna Tui is the one to watch out for. Going a 66 is pretty good at that age, and Angharad is obviously still top dog, and hopefully she can hold her off. But you never know, a 16-year-old can drop off time quite quick. So.
Yeah, you never know. And obviously they've got Mel Marshall out there now. She's not Sienna Tooney's coach, but she is obviously a bit of a breaststroke wizard.
Yeah, exactly.
She will be I think she's part of the team heading to World Championships for Australian swimming. So, Britain's loss, I guess.
Yeah, it is.
That just about rounds up this week's episode of the Propulsion Swimming Podcast. We'll be back next week, hopefully with a guest from somewhere around the world of swimming. I'll tease that out there. It's not just going to be Britain leading into those World Championships. We're trying to cast the net far and wide. We're also looking to do some more bonus episodes, a little bit shorter than the Summer Macintosh one that we did last week, which just ended up being long because she ended up breaking 3 world records, not just the one that we had in mind. So if you've got any topics that you want us to cover over the next few weeks, drop us an email, drop us an Instagram message, a YouTube comment, anything you want. I think Dan wants to do like the Mount Rushmore of swimming. Which 4 swimmers would you put on that? Dan, I'm going to say I'm not sure how we can drag that out for like a 10-minute podcast because
I think 3 of them are quite easy. The 4th one might be a bit of a debate.
But we'll get around to those episodes. We want to give you guys more content leading into the summer because there's a lot of swimming happening. We want to do quick fire episodes a bit more as well. So let us know if you've got any comments, and if there's nothing else left to say, me and Dan will see you guys in 7 days' time.
Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll catch you on the next one.
You've been listening to the Propulsion Swimming Podcast with Scott and Dan. We want to thank you for joining us and invite you to subscribe to the show, as well as checking out the Propulsion Swimming YouTube channel for weekly tutorials and videos to get your swimming fix. We will be back next week. Until then, we'll catch you on the next one.